Здравствуйте, друзья!
Hello, dear friends. Today we have live broadcast on ALLATRA TV together with Diana, of course, with your direct participation, and we will discuss the subject of hypnosis. So stay tuned, ask your comments and ask questions and write comments. We will answer to everything, and of course, interesting stories and situations. This is what we will consider in our next episodes. So why have we decided to actually raise the topic of hypnosis? Because today we can very often encounter mentions of this tool as one of the most efficient ways to solve psychological issues of a human. But is this really so? Is it true what experts are saying and telling about hypnosis? Perhaps one of the major goals of our broadcast today is to discuss and to show for the experts themselves and for them to be able to understand for themselves what hypnosis is and whether they can and should use it for the requests people address them with, and for people to understand before they go to a specialist who insists and convinces them that hypnosis is an efficient tool. Experts and people, ordinary people, should understand what will be the consequences. Yes, Alexander, hypnosis, this subject is indeed very important to understand. For me, the most interesting point in it was since I was a student in the internship, because when I was getting the specialized medical education, I didn't have an understanding of what hypnosis is and how safe, whether it is safe for a human or not. And indeed, even at that time and now, this method was quite demanded and quite popular, and it still remains popular among specialists and among people who want to solve their problems in a fast and efficient way. But the question remains whether hypnosis solves the issue, or do they get a major and many more problems with this method? So this question remained open for me for many years. And only when books by Anastasia Novych were released, when actually the mechanism of hypnosis was a little bit explained and how dangerous this impact on a person is, only then I came to understand how carefully and seriously we should read this issue and how deeply we should understand it, because it is very important to remember that not for it's dangerous for our patients, but also for experts who use it. And it's not a wrong thing I'm saying now. It's not a mistake, because sometimes we forget when we impact another person in a negative way, we destroy ourselves as well, because when we use some method without the understanding of the mechanism, of the essence of this method, at least we violate the first principle of all physicians, to do no harm. And the next stage, which was very important for me in understanding the mechanism of hypnosis, was the video Consciousness and Personality from the Inevitably Dead to the Eternally Alive, where Igor Mikhailovich disclosed the mechanism of consciousness even more, and the whole danger and destructive character of this mechanism on a human. The thing is that in the mechanism of hypnosis, it's impossible to understand it before understanding the nature and structure of a human, not the body of a human, but the human as a whole, because indeed, human being represents a very difficult energy structure, complex energy structure, and body is just a visible part of this structure. The main component of this structure is the soul, around which everything else is built, and personality, human spirit, which is actually our genuine essence. This is who we are. So, and we cannot see ourselves the real with earthly eyes. Personality and soul are connected between themselves with an energy channel, through which personality always gets the flow of feelings or energy or love feelings, this is what come into personality from the soul, from the spiritual world. And this is actually the vital energy,
которая, собственно, дает
which actually gives life to everything.
личность и душа. Это духовная
Personality and soul
это то,
represent the spiritual component of a human being. This is what makes each of us alive and human. We have a body, everyone knows this, and there is consciousness. Consciousness and body are the animal component of every person, and if this component dominates, then a person becomes an animal, a beast. Consciousness is an information program, and so
Я, знаете, хотела бы сделать сейчас одно уточнение.
I would like to give a little clarification regarding the point that consciousness, and we can see it on the structure on the screen right now, consciousness is located outside the human body. And there is a great evidence base from the scientific knowledge, and it was presented at the conference that took place recently at May 22nd, 2021. It was called Life After Death, Action and Facts. As a matter of fact, consciousness is what everyone has. It's a field information structure, but a human has two types of consciousness, primary consciousness and secondary consciousness. Primary consciousness emerges in vitro and is connected with the body and body instincts. This is our inner child, which remains at the level of 5 to 6 year old child development. And the secondary consciousness, this is basically what we associate ourselves with. And through secondary consciousness, we get all the thoughts and images perceived by our brain. What is important to understand? Personality does not have critical perception of the three-dimensional space in which we are now. The connecting link between personality and secondary consciousness is the primary consciousness. So what we have as a result? What kind of information is given by primary consciousness to personality is exactly what personality perceives as reality, and it pays with its attention for it. So we can say that consciousness is a 3D glasses for personality, by means of which we see the world around us in the way consciousness presents us to it, but not the way it is in real. So hypnosis, this is what really shows that what consciousness presents to us is just an illusion, and basically everything which is presented to us from consciousness is an illusion. You see, we can make a person treat any situation and perceive other people's actions in a certain way. You can force a person to perceive himself through any image which you set for him. And this mechanism actually was revealed in the video Consciousness and Personality from the Inevitably Dead to the Eternally Alive. You know what is interesting? Together with you, and I was watching this fragment, and now I'm watching on the screen fragments of the energy structure, and I understand that probably right now it's not quite clear for everyone, and not quite clear what you're saying about primary consciousness, about secondary consciousness. But this information, the fact that primary consciousness is just a mediator between personality and the world in which we are living, this three-dimensional world, basically this is the key. This is the key point for psychology on the whole, and for revealing and understanding the essence of hypnosis, the way it works, and to understand in general how a human being functions, in fact, who is responsible for what, and who is where, and who can make any manipulations for the purpose of achieving certain goals. This information is indeed has been available for quite a long time. It has been voiced thanks to the books by Anastasia Novych, thanks to the videos with the participation of Igor Mikhailovich Danilov. This information has been already available since long ago, and the conference of May 22nd, Life After Death, Fiction and Facts, the uniqueness of this conference cannot be overestimated. First of all, 65 languages of interpreting, and also the facts, even for me personally, as a layman who hardly understands a lot in sciences. I'm not a member of the scientific community. I was never involved in any research, but what experts were saying, experts from all over the world, it was quite clear when it was mentioned by neurosurgeons, reanimatologists, psychiatrists, and they said about the same things. They said that consciousness is beyond the body. And so this video with the energy structure vividly demonstrates this. Also, I understand that in consciousness of many people, there will be some disgust and indignation. Where did you take this structure from? Why it is so important? But it's very simple. If we look at very simple definition what hypnosis is, because we are kind of used to reading definitions and it seems to have everything in a clear form. I'll go back to this point. Let's take what hypnosis is. What is your first association? It's like a sleeping state. Yes, it is sleep. And the next two words which are attached to the hypnosis, it's suggestion and impact. And not many people don't have any further associations. I like another definition which is quite close to what is describing the method and essence of hypnosis. Hypnosis is a means to artificially make a person sleep and submit this person to your power by means of a word. And we'll go back to this definition later. The state of hypnosis is characterized by sharp focus of attention, high perceptibility to suggestion, and direct suggestion or self-suggestion. And I have a question now to those people whose consciousness is indignated. As for me, when I got these definitions in the past, I had a mass of questions. What about the state of hypnosis? Whose state is it? My body, my thoughts? Because we usually associate ourselves with this. Attention, what is it? Where is my attention? Who is controlling attention? And again, if we speak about self-suggestion, we again go back to the point. Who am I? Who is that I who is suggesting anything to myself? We kind of used to associate self-suggestion with thoughts which we repeat to ourselves, trying to achieve certain result. But if I am my thoughts, as I've been taught, then who chooses these thoughts? Who gives a command to repeat these thoughts? So many questions arise. And for example, if many people believe and experts believe that is this the brain? But we've just mentioned that brain does not generate thoughts. There are no thoughts in the brain. Brain only perceives thoughts getting from the field of consciousness. And this is the evidence base which was provided at the conference by neurosurgeons. For example, a neurosurgeon, he has surgeries on human brain, and they know very well. They've been operating people for 30 years, and they confirm that there are no thoughts in the brain, no memory in the brain, and no mind in the brain. That's it. These are practitioners who proved what they actually encountered. So why we started talking about the point? It's impossible to cope with the mechanism of hypnosis without knowing the structure of a human. So many questions arise, and if we don't have answers to these questions, how can we work with this? That is why.
Exactly. This is quite interesting that you ran in terms of hypnosis, and there are much more questions. And are there actually answers to them? No. And in my practice, when I finished my studying, there was such a modern direction, fashionable one, hypnosis. And psychoanalysis, and I've never used it in my life. I actually didn't have such facts, and I couldn't actually say why it is dangerous. And the only thing which stopped me, it was some internal conviction. I couldn't get rid of the thought that hypnosis is really dangerous, and I was sure that I don't want to apply it in my practice, and I don't want it to be applied for me. And many times I had to refuse the patients who actually insist on using this method. That's why how you can even use it. Even though in psychiatry we have so many things we could apply without proper understanding, but hypnosis, I was really cautious about it. So you had like eternal resistance for it. Yes, my colleagues, who all of them actually practice this method, and they were asking me questions, well, explain me. And I was replying to them, could you please provide me the evidence if it's safe? Explain me the essence. And these questions was without the answers. Therefore, when I was reading the books and listening to the videos, indeed, it is such a precious and valuable help. And for everyone who wants to figure out the essence of a hypnosis, I right now appeal to the specialists, to those people who actually want to apply this method on themselves. I'll just say it again that it's invaluable help to listen to these videos and have a proper understanding what hypnosis is, and only after that make a decision whether you want to use this method. And today, with a great joy and gratitude, I want to share my understandings after I actually penetrated and had my own understanding. And right now, together with you, I would like to recommend right now to watch the video fragment from Conscience and Personality video, and we together will know about the mechanism of hypnosis.
The essence of hypnosis lies precisely in direct influence on primary consciousness from outside. After all, primary consciousness doesn't perceive the world as such, it perceives it through secondary consciousness. Let's say secondary consciousness can deceive it. Yet primary consciousness perceives reactions of the body, while secondary consciousness perceives reactions of the body through primary consciousness. That's the sequence, just to make it clear. Meanwhile, work of the brain is a reflection. It's already a material, let's say, manifestation of the work of consciousness. First and foremost of the work of primary consciousness, but it is still connected with the material world as well. However, personality is connected only with primary consciousness. As a matter of fact, all this is simple. If you take a pen and draw it all, everything falls into place. So for personality, it's an even greater pressure when the consciousness of that very hypnotist also interferes. It turns out that not only does personality experience this very influence of its primary and secondary consciousness, but on top of that, a third party from the system also interferes. It is the hypnotist consciousness which creates additional images, exerts influence and programmed impact. Absolutely right. But there is a little nuance here. When upon influence by means of hypnosis or magic, it doesn't matter which of them, there is a direct impact on primary consciousness. Here a substitution also takes place. It may be suggested to a person that he is a famous sinner, he will sing and perceive himself as this very famous sinner, answer questions and so on. We see that there was, let's say, John Smith, and he still remains John Smith. He poses as some kind of famous sinner, but outwardly he hasn't changed, although he is convinced that he's really a famous sinner. Why? Because I'm saying once again, primary consciousness doesn't have a pronounced intellect, but it can use the database, meaning that experience which is accumulated or acquired by means of secondary consciousness. This is also an interesting point, or that which we call the back essence. It's nothing other than a data storage bank. It's where memory is stored, and unfortunately, the brain has nothing to do with that. What is magic? Magic is exactly performed. Well, I'll disclose a secret. When a person is developing at the level of primary consciousness, when this very primary self is evolving and the system is being studied, then a person can indeed learn various magic techniques, meaning what we call extrasensory perception and all the rest. This takes place precisely due to the activeness of primary consciousness. It is able to work very actively even at the level of the sixth dimension, that is, to transform various manifestations, to see plans of the system, to hear them, and so on. As for secondary consciousness, it is surely limited. It can get surprised, generate great emotions and surges, emit a wave which overwhelms primary consciousness and is reflected on our body. Yes, I suppose this will indeed be helpful for many people. After all, the phenomenon of hypnosis is still considered to be an unsolved mystery for researchers. But now, the very essence of this phenomenon and the harmfulness of its impact on a human being's personality in general is already simply understandable. After all, today, very many people know that hypnosis is used for medical purposes. Well, perhaps in some extremely severe therapeutic cases, this may even be justified, but on the whole, given that list of where specifically hypnosuggestive psychotherapy is used, and who exactly does this, well, here already a question arises, of course, what is more important for a person, his body or personality? After all, basically, people often go to various hypnotists when they're simply too lazy to change themselves, to just take care of the health of their body and to work on its bad habits, but they want magic. Yet none of them certainly thinks about what they will pay for it afterwards. Thus, it is no coincidence that even in older times, hypnosis was written about as a phenomenon that ruins human spirit, that it is conscious service to evil. And earlier, by the way, in the past centuries, it was called animal magnetism. In that very Christianity, it was labeled as a type of witchcraft and equated with black magic. Now, after such detailed explanations, I believe it will be clear for people why magic must not be used. It is obvious that one must not use magic techniques, but must not strive and desire magic, because in a human being only consciousness can desire magic. If you dream of power, if you dream of magic, especially secret power, if you aspire to develop some super abilities in yourself, if you engage in this, you live by consciousness, meaning you mistakenly waste your time. Yes, people do develop these abilities in themselves, but what is the end? Death is the state of subpersonality, age-long torments. But what is the point of these actions, of these abilities? What is the point?
Ты знаешь, вот после
You know, after watching this fragment from the video Consciousness and Personality from the Inevitably Dead to the Eternally Alive, I have a puzzle formed, exactly what she was talking in the beginning, how energy structure of a human being works, and exactly the mechanisms was specifically assembled, who actually influence on whom, and you can understand with which purpose. As we already was talking about, that the personality doesn't have a critical perception. We have this mediator, 3D glasses, which starts to show us certain images. And we, when we are not experienced, we finance in it, not actually understanding that it has nothing to do with the reality or with life. And indeed, if we talk honestly, if we look at a hypnosis, you need to understand that unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, that modern medicine, with its all understanding of hypnosis and frequent use of hypnosis, even extreme advertisement of it, if we can compare it to the tip of an iceberg, and all possible special services which serve their own interest, personal interests, or interests of state. Of course, they know a little more information about hypnosis and the use with the different purposes. As we say right now in a consumer society, it's actually top secret. As they say, for security of government. And in the second case, the use of hypnosis is actually destructive for a person, and no one thinks about that, how destructive it is for a person who uses hypnosis. And I would repeat it once again. I would like to emphasize on this, that this is aggressive propaganda of such method. Who benefits from it? Who benefits from the fact that people consciously go to a hypnotist and to actually use this method, even though in the video it is clearly stated that is violation, enslavement of a personality, of a spirit. And if we go even deeper in the reality of our modern times, we can take an example of such a publicized phenomena like Ericksonian hypnosis. What is actually interesting about this hypnosis? As I remember, this Erickson hypnosis can be used to everyone. Yes, this is actually a good example to actually figure out more information about this method, and we will go back to that. But before that, I would like to clarify a little bit and to deepen the understanding. Let's just summarize that hypnosis is influence, and the key moment here is focusing attention on images, pictures and memories. And exactly this Milton Erickson, who is called the genius of 20th century, a master of hypnosis, he spoke exactly in such a way that hypnosis is transfer of images. And images and thoughts is a manifestation of work of consciousness. Consciousness is not me. It's external influence on me. As I said today, the consciousness is informational program. And there is someone who created it and who controls it, as any informational program. We already figure out that it influences a person through images and thoughts in our head. And this is exactly what each hypnosist does. And look how it happens. We pay attention to certain image or picture in our mind. And further, influence takes place through thoughts and comments, which actually matches with this image. There is a flow of thoughts which person perceives as his own. And this is exactly the most virtuous hypnosis. That person thinks that he is exactly this virtual image with consciousness created. Whole science, under the influence of consciousness, projects the thought that personality, he is exactly someone who has this patterns of behavior, and the thoughts which comes under the influence. This is, as they say, are our thoughts. And the main hypnosist is those who control the consciousness of all people, who made people think that they have no soul. But the question, which payment does this hypnotist takes? Because they don't take money. They don't not interested in money, because exactly the payment for this hypnosis is much higher. He is interested. The only thing he is interested about, it is energy. Energy which comes from the soul to a personality of a human being. And unlike us, sleeping ones, beasts perfectly understand that this is most valuable, and this is the only source of pure energy which gives life to everything, thanks to which everything exists. And the task of each person is to understand that, to awake and get rid of this influence of hypnosis, to understand that we pay for this hypnosis with our life. and actually for any other hypnosis we pay in the same way. And here, so no one would have a doubt, we can figure out the peculiarity of Erickson's hypnosis. Approximately from 15 to 40% of people actually can be influenced by hypnosis, but by the method of Erickson, 100% of people can be influenced by hypnosis. And let's discuss how it actually takes place. A person sits down, relaxes, and starts to focus attention on a certain picture. It doesn't matter which kind of picture. It can be something on the street. And this is exactly from what it starts. That person focuses attention on certain picture. And we will actually go deeper into this. So it starts from the fact that the person pays attention to a certain image in his head. Doesn't matter in which picture, but what is important that consciousness works with the speed 60 images per second, and the human being doesn't control this process. Therefore, when someone says that we pay attention to some certain images, it's not truth. Even when we pay attention for a moment on a certain picture, furthermore, we dive into the stream of thoughts and images which consciousness sends to us. And exactly here, we have a situation when a person immerses into the stream and flows of thoughts. As they say in science, he dives into himself. They call the state of self-hypnosis. This is the trace state. When we flow into the stream of pictures and thoughts, and they exactly describe it as an immersion within oneself. This is how specialists call it. Exactly paying attention to the pictures and thoughts in one's head. There is no another explanation which science gives. The science doesn't know another self and self-immersion. So how it turns out, when we immerse into this flow of thoughts and images, do we actually fall under hypnosis? So the question arises, do we get out of this hypnosis? And do we need Erickson's method for that? Isn't it what each of us does every day? Deep memories when we fantasize and imagine something in our head. There are actually a lot of people who've never heard about Erickson, but they use this technique of hypnosis every day, many times a day. And exactly the main hypnotist uses this technique absolutely to each person. If we think about what our usual existence, this is images, pictures. We open our eyes, this is pictures. We close our eyes, again, this flow of pictures takes place. We sit in front of a TV, we see some kind of a TV show, and we constantly see these pictures and images. But what is interesting, we have the same feelings and emotions when we see these pictures. The same is in everyday life, and this is actually a really important point here. Our emotions and experiences, feelings, sensations in the body, any kind of reactions in the body, absolutely the same in what we call reality, in a dream, under hypnosis, in trance, during our fantasies, during hallucinations of mentally ill people. And in each such kind of altered state of consciousness, a person absolutely convinced that he is in the reality right now. And this is exactly what I was talking about, that which picture primary consciousness shows personality, this is exactly how personality perceives it and behaves in such a way. And I would clarify here as sleeping personality, because exactly what Sasha you were talking about, person who is awakened, he tries to feel and not to live by the dictation of consciousness. And immersion in oneself, this is exactly immersion into this flow of feelings which comes from the soul. And this is true immersion of a person.
You know, when you've just enumerated, well, let's say it, just the habitual state of a person just during his daily life, right? Yeah, it's true that we are constantly observing these images in our mind, and I've just recollected those moments when you were just carried away by some thoughts, and really you got such a state as if you are in half dream, right? Or usually, people then just notice this state and ask you, "Are you okay? Where are you?" Right? But you're actually in these fantasies, aren't you? So you just paid attention to one of those images, right, and kind of flew away, right? Yeah, and it turns out that people quite often happen to be in this hypnotic state during the day, even while they do not need any hypnotist for that. And so this is kind of one, designation that actually we have got that hypnotist in ourselves, right? Yes, exactly. If we come back to Erickson, what was his genius about? It was that, he just didn't stop people be engaged in what they were doing. And the key point in his studies was that do not interfere with what is happening. So, is it really that genius method, or I don't know? And another point is that when you use this method, so the point is that when we just emerge in this process of dreaming, imaging, right, as I've said, we come to be in the trance, and then your critical thinking is minimized, and this exactly moment, or how is this dialogue by Erickson's hypnosis constructed? So a person is suggested some, deductions, and person agrees to that. So, and doesn't our consciousness talk with us with the help of these deductions? Right, it does, because oh, really, you're not able to do something, and you believe that you're not able to do something. Isn't it so? Right, consciousness works like that all the time, and we agree with that all the time. And right, you hear these thoughts constantly in your head that, oh, you can't do that, or you won't be able to do that. But why? Why have you agreed that you won't be able to do something? It's just a thought. It's just a thought from consciousness. But consciousness presents it as a fact. So this commentator in our mind, right, it constantly throws deductions in our head and makes us believe that they're true. So please just write down these deductions and then check whether they're true or not. So this Erickson's method of hypnosis, it is constantly used in our life. So just imagine, we have come home from work and we've turned on TV, and well, in a few minutes we're already in a trance state, and then anything that we keep on watching TV, that any destructive techniques that go into our mind. So you should understand that. So it's just enough, to watch your favorite series or any news, and then a person might do bad things under the influence of those programs that he had watched on TV, because he was in that trance state. So if we talk about, that Erickson is believed to be the genius of the 20th century, well, I would say that his main point was that he just didn't interfere with the main hypnotist, with the same hypnotist of the whole system of our world. This is the Satan, as it is called in all the religions. And his methods, and the methods in religions are the same as using this hypnosis, right, to make person believe and we should understand what these methods are about. And of course, the system is interesting in just making it popular, this system popular. And I would like to ask one more question. Based on the different articles, and then they say that ever since hypnosis is about a careful attitude to the personality of the patient during the session, who always has the choice to accept the therapist's statement or not, but the hypnotist's task is just to direct, so to say, not to suggest a person. And so what Diana, you have written, you have mentioned just. And also they write that Milton Erickson, well, he's called the genius of the 20th century because he's found a way to return hypnosis to medical psychology for the Erickson's just medical psychology, and that was kind of his advantage. And these words really sound with such respect in these articles. It's because on the one hand they state that hypnosis is kind of enslavement, but on the other hand Erickson's hypnosis kind of gives a choice. But because if we look what a person, who a person really is, then it is right. It's kind of, if you don't know who a person is, then you kind of don't have any impression not to try this method. Right, and I would like to point out how this method is working in advertising. Formulations, for example, or assertions. So, for example, okay, we can hear just different bases, right, in advertisements. And let us recollect what is a personality according to the formal psychology. So, just to remember that hypnosis is actually violent influence, because this manipulation is always a violent act on the personality. And in order for my words not to be bare, I would like to give you an example from advertising according to Erickson's hypnosis, and then you will understand my point. So it is saying that, to expand the boundaries of opportunities for leaders of business, coaches, negotiators, salesmen, sports coaches, and so on. So what is it about? It is about the sphere of influence, right? And then also advertising says about parents and educators, so they can use this method as well. Trance or hypnotic speech, the magic of using these methods or non-verbal suggestions, and just how to control the states and emotions, how to evoke these states in yourself and other people. And these are all methods just suggested in advertising. How to use usual hypnosis during business situations, and how to persuade sales representatives. So we can see that we cannot call such attitude as a respectful attitude to the personality, isn't it? That it's like, okay, I'm using you a little bit just for my own purposes. So is it about respect? And here we should understand that NLP methods, they have the basis on Erickson's hypnosis. And these techniques are for just using, manipulating the clients. It's all about violating the personality. So that is why, well, I do not believe that it's a good thing.
I was just thinking how many people today are spending so many times, efforts and resources in order to learn these techniques. I have a question. Is this really our goal? To learn to use each other, to strive for power, for domination over one another. Is this really our goal? Or whose goal is this? Who substituted our goals and who suggested to us and imposed on us that these are our goals? Because in every person, only the animal, the beast is inside us, is striving for power. I've listened for many times to other people on my receptions, on consultations, for people who strive to cope with their problems. And I can say for sure that our inner need coincides precisely with what the prophets were talking about. Buddha, Jesus, Prophet Muhammad. Did they really teach us to manipulate each other? Is this what we strive for? They taught us to respect and love each other. That's why we have to think why, contrary to our inner aspirations, we are implementing the imposed beastly needs. You know, Milton Erickson is called the magician or mage of communication. But actually, the devil is the real mage of communications. Billions of people are under hypnosis, and they are not even aware of that. This is the point, and this is what I would like all experts and people think about it. You know, in reality,
Это не просто шок.
well, this is not just a shock. When you understand that, as a matter of fact, psychology and those who like mainstream science, the scientific community
This is
acknowledges a
shocking
person
that
to be the
those who
genius.
actually perceived as genius, they actually serve to the fact to enslave people, and this all says that they say, come to us and we will teach you how to rule. Leader to the subordinates, teachers to students, parents over their children, and so on.
Где нормальные человеческие взаимоотношения? Где взаимоотношения
Where are
And where is
normal human relationships?
в дружбе, на взаимовыручке?
Where is
Very
friendship,
simple
self-mutual
relationship which is built on
assistance?
mutual assistance and respect. Why they don't teach to it? Or is it old-fashioned? Is it no demand on this?
Чтобы человек научился
And
себе
for a
против воли
person
другого, опять-таки я
to
вернусь к фрагменту из сознания личности. Ведь это черная магия. Это насилие над духом. Пожалуйста, приходите, научим, расскажем, покажем.
Hypnosis is actually black magic. It is violence over spirit. Also, this issue of magic communications. It will be interesting to understand this because you already mentioned that hypnosis is actually an altered state of consciousness. And sleep is also an altered state of consciousness, trance, and even the normal daytime. If these are altered state of consciousness, why should consciousness, which should it base upon? You know, Sasha, of course there is such a thing. If there is pathology, there is a normal stage. What is pathology? It is distorted norm, and it's important to understand the consciousness is a tool. And it's very important to understand in whose hands this tool is and how he uses it. Of course, hypnosis is the devil's tool, the system's tool, but a human can force this tool to cope with precise tasks, and he's supposed to do this. So the tool of evil should be forced to serve the good. That is why, it's very important to realize that there is personality, and in my hands I have even greater tool, my attention, and without my attention, no information program will be able to work. So, norm is to force consciousness to work for the purposes which I need as a human being, not as an animal, but as a human being. So basically, to put it simply, to speak in the language of our today's analogy, when these 3D glasses show me what I want, what I order, and not what these glasses want to play for me, but what I, kind of requested from them, right? Yes, and even there is a different thing. There is, we perceive it in a different way. We can perceive it in a different way. We can perceive the environment around us through hints from consciousness and distortions that come from consciousness. But, we haven't discussed this energy structure in detail, but mature, developed personality can develop this ability to feel and perceive true reality without this mediator, without these distortions, and use consciousness only as a tool. If you take off the 3D glasses, we will not be able to see the three-dimensionality. Consciousness is just a tool which should serve us and help us for the humane purposes. Yes, clear. So, in any case, we have to give references to book ALLATRA, where there is a detailed information about the human energy structure, and where the functions of everything is described, and what are the components of this structure, and what part is responsible for what. Yes, indeed. It is time, and it's very important for us to understand how I'm structured, how I'm arranged as a human being, not the body, but where is evil, where is good in me, where is mind and memory in me, how all this interacts and functions. And for this, you have to learn the human energy structure, how it is arranged. And this is the real knowledgeable, correct approach and knowledge which should be the basis of everything. That's the question and that's the point. Thank you. Actually, regarding Erickson, I don't have any other questions. I suggest that we proceed to our next block.
Итак, еще одно
очень популярное направление. One more very interesting trend nowadays, and especially in post-Soviet countries, because in the Western world it has already existed for quite a long time, even in the official level, but to us it still just comes, and this provokes, some excessive interest in the regressive hypnosis techniques. As far as I know, this is suggested in quite a non-standard way, and it's quite inefficient, just as hypnosis. Like you have several sessions, a person is submerged somewhere, he or she recalls something, and voila, everything is solved. So, is this really true? And we have to understand what is actually taking place during this regressive hypnosis. Yes, indeed, this is such one popular trend which really, getting a momentum, because regressive hypnosis is actually needed to return a person to the memories of his or her events in the past, but to the events of his past. And, the very method of regressive hypnosis is based on the statement that these events of the past influence what is happening to a person right now. And there is such a theoretical assumption that if a person is returned to the age period when he or she had some traumatic situation and he will experience this again, then the situation will be resolved and stop influencing his further life. So I have three, and there are three basic time periods with which regressive hypnotherapists work. The first period is the age of 3 to 4 years old until the present. It's the most widespread regressive hypnosis technique because it's considered that since the age of 3 to 4 years old, a person has conscious memories. Before that age, there are not still the regions of the brain responsible for the memory have not been formed. And again, I'll give a reference to the conference of May 22nd, and it's a proven fact that there is no memory in the brain. Indeed, this issue was discussed at the conference, which I already mentioned. It's life after death, fiction and facts. People operating surgeons, neurosurgeons, those who study human brain for throughout their life, they already came to such a conclusion that there is no memory in the brain. The next age period, which, with which regressive hypnotherapists work, is the age of, it's not even the age, it's like from in vitro period in the mother's womb to the present day. And there are Stanislav Grof's work, who is an American Czech psychiatrist. He's been working with this method for many years. He has many research and studies on this subject. But the main interesting thing is that thanks to his long-lasting research work, Grof has come to the conclusion that there is no memory in the brain. And when a colleague came up to him, academician came up to him at one of the conferences, and he tried to persuade him otherwise, there is a famous answer by Grof. Imagine that you have a television set at home. Do you have a TV set? Imagine that it is broken. You call a serviceman, he fixes it. Do you still think that all the stations are still in this television? And the discussion stopped at this point, because really there are no convincing arguments that academician could give that memory is in the brain. There are no such arguments. So.
Знаешь, у меня вот какой вопрос возникает. Если
I have the other question. If most of specialists, I referred to the International Scientific Conference, and there are such discussions, but there are brave researchers who actually declare and state the facts which they observe, because most of the experts still lack an understanding. They are on their older convictions that memory is in the brain, and if they do not have such an understanding, then of course it's clear that they don't understand the mechanism of hypnosis. Then what do they actually work with?
Right, and what for? Right, and what for? And so what methods they applied. And that is why, I would say that this just the idea of regressive usage or regressive method as well as help to solve some issues, I think it is senseless. Why? Because I'll just let me explain. Because there is a popular notion in psychotherapy and psychology is that that all our problems lie in our childhoods, right? But it's a lie, right. Let me interrupt you. I have, even no idea how well. Let me just hypothetically just imagine, okay? So, okay, I agree that I had some traumas when I was a kid, and right, and it sets kind of some patterns of behavior for the future. Okay, let it be so. So I come to the regression hypnotist, and this hypnotist, he tells me that, okay, I need to come back to this, intrauterine period of my life, and I've got to kind of recollect when I was in my mom's and womb, and then I just had some kind of, I don't know, attacks or what should I recollect, right? It really sounds weird to me, at least. I don't know, or even it sounds weird from the point of logics. So I cannot even find these explanations, of the usage of these methods. And I do agree with you, Alexander, because it's so absurd. Can you imagine that people just with high degrees, right, scientific degrees, and they keep on working with these methods, and they're kind of helping people solve their issues. But even so, okay, when you are a kid, okay, and your mom did something wrong to you, but it's it's not that horrible as it might seem, and might have an impact on the whole life. And that is why we are so confused in these concepts. And then just have a look. So what is this lie about? Because I say that the source of life, right? It is of lie. Sorry, it is our consciousness, and it is constantly with us. And any method of hypnosis, it makes person trust this consciousness, trust this deceiver who constantly makes substitutions and who constantly lies. As just let me remind how are just the algorithm of consciousness work. So first of all, it's a picture, then emotion, a thought, and then already an action, right? So any action actually is already the consequence of already accepted image in your mind, right? So if you do not like some actions of yours, if you do not like just different situations, or the way we perceive different situations or different people, so probably we should be attentive to our thoughts, what thoughts we accept, or what thoughts we pay attention to, with what thoughts we agree. So this is where the lie is about, and how this deception is actually destructive, how deeply we can violate, hurt a person. Here, we could understand this point if we study the so-called the third category of regressive hypnotherapy, is that the mistakes, the presumably such theory, right? The mistakes of the previous lives, they influence our present lives, so to say, right? And I would say that this interest of people today, right, to the so-called previous lives, like karma is just daunting on me, and is haunting me, sorry, and right, so they kind of put responsibility on the previous lives, and different esoteric directions, representatives, they suggested, kind of this opportunity to, to kind of recollect your previous lives, and so they explained that, okay, you were such a person, and then you were dealing with that and that. And here we see that already today we have official just representatives who also suggest solve problems in such a way, right? And today in such countries as well in the US and European countries, they also suggest such methods and using of hypnosis. And today you don't have to be a PhD in medicine or what, but just enough, to have secondary medical education in a nurse, or just you have just to take some courses in hypnosis, and here you are already kind of an expert. So this method of impact on people is being made popular today, and here I would say, well, if we talk about that, that memory does not is not situated in the brains. And even if we recollect, the experts' opinions from the conference, Life After Death, right? So the researchers presented this information and facts that just kids, right? They start telling the facts of their previous lives and in such details. So who in a kid was talking that information, and who in us tells this regression hypnotist about our previous lives? So probably we should put the question in a different way. Who in a human being actually is reincarnated? And in order to understand this point, let us watch an excerpt from the video of the participation of Grimikhash Danilov.
Also, in the context of this topic, I'd like to touch upon such a phenomenon that nowadays there is treatment by means of putting a person into hypnosis and provoking his past lives to arise. This is called a method of regression to past lives. So a person is put into a state of hypnosis and forced to recall supposedly previous lives.
And the person tells something, making up stories and so on.
Yes, the person tells something about some problems which existed in his previous life.
Especially if a doctor has explained to him that he has a problem.
Yes, surely. Of course.
Probably in the past life your wife hit you, he says, on your head with a frying pan. And because of that you dislike women so much, don't you? Aggression arises, that's why you're an alcoholic and adult, right? You just need to recall, to live through it again. And this moment will abandon you. You'll become nice like a kitten, and everyone will love and respect you.
Yet, does it help to resolve the situation?
For the doctor, yes, it helps him financially.
It's just so interesting.
While for the patient, no. Let me explain. Even, let's say, in Hinduism, a lot is said about reincarnation, and in other religions there's a mention of reincarnation. Reincarnation of the soul. However, for some reason, over time, they have made it up in such a way that it's you who get reincarnated. Guys, you live just once, you are personality. Personality has one chance, and there is no other chance. A person cannot live 2 or 3 lives. Yet, together with the soul, we already explained, whoever wants to will read ALLATRA. A person gets reincarnated, but again, he is no longer capable of living a full life as personality, right? Well, I shall digress a little. Does personality actually live a full life in this world? It doesn't either. And here 2 questions overlap, right? Well, just in order to explain simpler and clearer, having lived his life, a person becomes a subpersonality, meaning a satellite, that is located near the soul. And it's the soul that gets reincarnated, but it's not you. You are that which is born once. It is personality. And for as long as you are personality, you have an opportunity to really gain life or to lose it. However, for some reason, it's being told, especially in Hinduism, that with every life you gain more and more experience, you accumulate. Later on you will become a king, then you will even become a Buddha, or something else. All this is nonsense. It is deception by consciousness itself. It doesn't let a person really follow the spiritual path in this life. It says just be nice, listen to what I tell you, and then in the next life it will be better for you, and later on even much better. Well, and since a person doesn't remember and doesn't know his past life, a problem arises. Well, there are nuances. What needs to be done? After all, this practice of various regressions methods has existed a very long time. And in the past, shamans engaged in this. For ages and ages, the system has been manipulating such methods through consciousness in order to remind a person. For instance, there is a past life, something else. There are déjà vu effects which have nothing to do with the past life, but they arise in a person. It's as if a confirmation that it is your reincarnation. Yet, if a person had lived, he would remember everything. He would accumulate a tremendous experience. He would become talented. In the past life, let's suppose you were, for instance, an artisan and molded pots. In this life, you could improve, you would learn to decorate these pots, okay? And pardon me, in the next life, you would learn to sell them. And so, perhaps you would become a normal... Okay, it was a joke. Well, I meant the talent would develop accordingly, right? While, in actual fact, a human is born with a blank sheet and builds his own life. However, There are methods that can call, let's say, or awaken a subpersonality. Sometimes spontaneous awakening of those happen. Sometimes they dominate over the personality. But it's not reincarnation. It is still dead. Even if a subpersonality becomes more active than personality and lives, can this be called a person's reincarnation? No. Subpersonality is dead. It had one chance. It no longer has an option to become alive. Not in any way. However, it can suppress personality and manifest itself as dominating. And so, the methods allowing, let's say, to call to a waking subpersonality, they actually differ from what these psychologists of modern times use. And the situation there is a little bit different. If a person saw all this from the position of personality, it would surely help him. Yes, there were cases when it helped a person very seriously to get out and start the right way of life, so to say, because he understood the prospects of the future. While in this case, it's a simple deception, a simple suggestion. So how does this happen? There's primary consciousness, there is secondary consciousness, and there is personality. Hypnosis is exactly when there is interference in supplying information, and it already goes to personality directly. That is lulled. Secondary consciousness is moved aside, whereas primary consciousness is slightly lulled. And that's where a third one can give an imprint. And then personality perceives. It doesn't perceive critically, in fact, it doesn't care. We already gave examples, and more than once.
How does it perceive this world?
What primary consciousness perceives is what personality perceives. Like today, it's John Smith. Tomorrow, pardon me, out of the blue, or by means of some external compulsion, primary consciousness, or the one who took its place before personality, there goes a flow of information that you are not John Smith anymore, but you are Smith John. Well, if it's Smith John, let it be Smith John. So in this case, personality has no self-identification by name or anything else. Because in this case, personality isn't completely, let's say, subjectified. That is, it becomes whole only when complete merging of personality with the soul already takes place. That's when a name emerges indeed. That's when it has its own complete self.
Итак, после смерти тела, что важно?
So after the death of the physical body, what needs to be understood that existence of a human being does not stop, and if a person gave most of his attention during this earthly lifetime, if he paid attention to the images in thoughts in his head, he merges with consciousness and becomes sub-personality, and all that remains of him is a stream of negative thoughts, memories and negative emotions, among which fear and aggression prevails, and continuous desire to eat. And since its information program and personality which merges with consciousness becomes already that information entity, so the only food it needs, this is exactly this energy which comes from the soul. And when he becomes this shell of the soul, the personality receives only crumbles of this energy. This can be compared to a patient dying of thirst, which gets once a year a drop of water, and that is not enough, and he constantly tries to get more of this energy, and when he gets access to the stream of energy which comes from the soul to a living personality, this energy is given exactly for the fact so the personality will fulfill the only chance to get in life. And in which way connection takes place? The secondary consciousness of the personality connects, or I would say even replaces, a personality. And this is exactly what takes place in regressive hypnosis. And therefore, when regressologist hears a story about the past life, you need to understand that exactly such a connection, substitution took place exactly from living personality to a dead entity. There is such a disorder, which is called in psychiatry a dissociative identity disorder, when in one person manifests several personalities, or I would even clarify several active subpersonalities, which oppressed personality and live life instead of it. And the specialists used, when they work with this disorder, the method of regressive hypnosis. First of all, what they paid attention to, this method is not effective, but as well, each next session prompts the activation of a new subpersonality, and around the soul there can be really a lot of such shells of such a personality, and each of them strives to take the energy from a living personality. During the regressive hypnosis, we can say that vital energy of a human being is been taken away. This is exactly what takes place during the session of regressive hypnosis. And even if we talk that just recently, if someone, we or someone else would start talking about subpersonalities and their obvious manifestation, and this is obvious manifestation, it is proven, no one already denies it. And what is, I will take honestly, in my opinion, this is disgusting. People striving to experience this on themselves, so someone would took place for them and share a story how they lived before. And there are such brave people who tries to connect this previous life to this life which they live. It's not even a paradox, but I would say that from my perspective this is stupid nonsense. The consequences of one personality tries to connect with the events in a life exactly completely different person who is not even connected to each other. They have nothing similar. They just have one carrier of energy. And thank you so much that you emphasize this. This is eternal hunger and thirst. Could you please think more about it? Those who prompted, those who actually wanted to experience this regressive hypnosis yourself, just think about the fact that you are entering in a human body, mortal entity who is have a thirst, and you give a keys to him for a full house of food. And please ask yourself a question: will you be able to get rid of him later on and return him back to this hell where he is usually? And this conference we had, there were so many specialists from all over the world who was talking about the manifestation of subpersonalities, that they encountered this phenomenon and that they work today with this. These are honest people who openly talk about this, calling it how it is, and they somehow tried to explain it scientifically and was talking about that it takes place in every person. And as we said already, we don't know how many subpersonalities lives in each of us. And if we even start counting them, guys, you should understand that someone just can take your place and they just won't let you go back home. And as you already said, how many subpersonalities have an access to the source of energy, and what they already paid attention as well. Psychologists, psychiatrists paid attention as well, that those people who wants to play with this regressive hypnosis and solve their problems in such a way, to conduct sessions of regressive hypnosis, then a person can actually have eventually the dissociative identity disorder. This access to these dead entities gets open, and this is just taking away a human's life. In how many times multiplies the chances that he himself will become the same dead entity eventually? It needs to be understood what you spend your life on. And for me, as I will conclude to myself from our conversation, first, paradox in the science itself regarding to the method of regressive hypnosis. It based on the fact that on the scientific level it is already proven the presence of a human soul. Well, stop, guys. Could you already understand yourself what you're talking about? That before science actually didn't talk about the fact that human beings have a soul. And first of all, we need to figure out why a human has a soul, what is it? And already now we have such a branch of psychology which actually officially recognized in America and Europe. These are governmental scientific organizations where it's given actually certificates, and they actually talk about the fact that there is a soul in a human being. And of course, if we talk about the essence, they understand it in their own way, but the fact remains. I'm sorry, do we have a soul or don't we? It should be clarified first of all, and we should consolidate and prove it that there are subpersonalities, that entities who lived before. Then go further. Find out who is alive in a human being and who has a chance to develop further and go further. That would be just wonderful. Even if in such a way we could do that, but there is a way to do that. And if we talk about regressive hypnosis, regressive method, and here I would honestly appeal to people, those who decided for themselves to try this method, or they believe that it can be the only way how they can resolve their psychological issues or everyday situations. Just simply think about in which hands you give yourself. And I'm not even talking about the life of the physical body, I'm talking about your real life, about the possibility to gain something more. Just think about it. And what you put yourself, if your energy structure enters that entity, nothing but death you will get. And the trouble is that the specialist to whom you come with your request, even though he doesn't understand everything regarding this method, he won't be able to help you. You, yourself, put yourself in a trap, dangerous mortal trap, from which it will be really hard to get out. So think twice. Do you need this exotic and attractiveness?
Yes, Alexander. Yes, I guess if anyone still has any doubts, in order to finally and ultimately understand how harmful hypnosis is, it's enough to look at what state our society is. What have we come to? We are not afraid of losing humaneness, but we are afraid of losing money, status, property. We stopped valuing our life, our own life, first of all, just because we have lost a simple understanding of what life is and what death is for a human. While we have turned the planet into a garbage area. We depleted all its resources. We are leaving a dying planet to our children. If someone doubts, please watch the conference Global Crisis. This already affects everyone. These are not some scary stories or reflections on a subject, but these are 11 hours of facts, live broadcast. And without paying attention to such facts, ignoring them, we hurry to earn money, build houses as a heritage for our children. We build some illusory plans for the future on the dead planet. When you understand all this, You can call it only toxic influence, toxic impact on people, not otherwise. Because basically we, all of us, are rushing into the abyss altogether, the entire humanity. And we understand this, but we are still continuing rushing into this abyss together with our children in our arms. You know, I have such an understanding with a rabbit who's scrolling and moving towards the snake's mouth. Isn't this not a mass hypnosis? Today we
Уже так много вот обо всем этом сказали.
We have talked so much about this today, and I have recalled right now a quote from the book by Anastasia Novych, Sensei, The Primordial of Shambhala. There is such a very precise definition of what hypnosis is. I would like to read it out in order to, cross a line under this understanding, which hopefully our viewers have already got. In hypnosis, a person becomes the one who he is in reality if the animal nature overwhelms him totally. It's a zombie, an obedient piece of meat, or as Amar Khayyam mentioned correctly, a sack of bones, blood and flesh. A zombie is a body from which a soul was disconnected and he was deprived of the mind. Hypnosis is the breaking of personality, it's aggression, it is slavery. And there is no knowledge at all in hypnosis except obedience, animal obedience. And this is what I would like to use as the conclusion for formation of the understanding of what hypnosis is. It sounds terrible. I understand this. After the entire information which we have discussed today, of course, everyone will have a question. What should we do? What do we have to do? You've said such things, guys. But in reality, there is a way out. As long as a person is alive, there is a way out. And as I've mentioned today, the first thing, in order to get out of any situation, you have to be aware of what is happening. We have to be aware as a fact what we would like to escape from. And all of us should understand that it's not some problem of separate people. No, not at all. It's the problem of the entire humanity, of all of us, because all of us are standing at the edge of the abyss with eyes closed, under the hypnosis of the animal. Under the hypnosis of this animal, we have built the consumerist formative society, which is ruining ourselves, which is ruining our planet and our relations. Nowadays, our planet is in the condition of a person in resuscitation box. In resuscitation, we can still save it, and this is what we should do right now, and this will be a way out of hypnosis. Despite all the conclusions and all the statements in one's head that nobody means this, you will not succeed, you don't know anything, that's all nonsense, etc. Conclusions without any facts, the same conclusions which put us on the verge of this abyss. Today we have mentioned just 2 conferences, which are filled with irresistible, irrefutable facts of the fact that we have a way out, and we must do this today. We have a chance. And the main thing now is for every person to understand that it depends on each of us whether we will implement this chance or not. It is very important for each of us to understand now that each of us is responsible for whether every child on this planet will live or not, will he or she have a future or not. Every one of us is responsible for the life of every person on this planet. This is what we have to understand. So, let us stop listening to statements and conclusions of this hypnotist and commentator in our heads. Let's study facts which have been collected by people who actually took away the shroud from their eyes. Let's join these people and let's change the situation for the better altogether. Yes, thank you.
На самом деле, сделала
Thank you, because you
несколько важных
actually have made several
один из
very
основных это то,
important
что
emphasis, and one of them is that,
реакции людей,
unfortunately,
с которыми
people's
часто
reactions,
приходится общаться, они
which
шаблонны.
we encounter often, they are
Вторая,
stereotypical,
говорят о том, что действительно
and
как будто бы
secondly,
человек находится
these
под
reactions
воздействием
show that
массового гипноза.
people are as if
Как-то мне
under mass
очень понравилось в одной
hypnosis.
из передач Игорь
Once
Михайлович
I liked in one of the videos
отличный
when
ассоциативный
Igor
пример
Mikhailovich
того, как работает
made a
гипноз.
very good
И
associative
сегодня
example of how
этот механизм
hypnosis is
озвучивался
functioning.
не раз, что
And basically this mechanism has been
если
voiced
первичному
today already,
сознанию дать
that
установку,
if
что
primary
это яблоко,
consciousness is
дать человеку
suggested
в руку вложить
that
лук,
here is an
он будет
apple,
его есть.
and you
Тело
put
даже
an
не поймет,
onion
что
into a
потому что
person's
личность не
hand,
чувствует вкус.
he will eat it, and the body will not even squeeze, because personality does not feel taste. We will not, as personalities, have an imposition that this is hot, sweet, or salty. But what is happening right now? This is the same thing which is happening. The society is quietly stepping towards the abyss, towards their own death. And these response reactions to facts, to the fact that you don't have to go out anywhere, you have to look outside your window. The first widespread reaction, thank God everything's okay with me, or thank God these are just mistakes in some calculations, these are some military experiments, these are some fanatics which are rising a wave of agitation. This will stop anyway. Guys, wake up. Because when this stops, it will be too late and we will face the reality of our choice, which will not be able to change. But thank to you, Diana, for such a life-asserting emphasis regarding the fact that we do have a chance. And indeed, now we, the entire humanity, are responsible for each other, for each of us, for every child, for every elderly person, even for every dog and bird on this planet. All of us are responsible together, and so far we still do have this unique only chance, a chance on the verge to change. Guys, thank you very much for being with us today on this live broadcast. We would like to conclude it with a very important and necessary excerpt from the video with the participation of Igor Mikhailovich Danilov. See you again. Have a nice day.
This is our chance, our common chance. Whether we use it or not depends on each of us. And, in this case, on every single one of us. Now, one person can really do a lot. A simple example, if you, my friend, have decided that this doesn't concern you and this is all ravings, then we, the remaining society, can do a lot less without you than with you. And this is true. That's the point.
Also, Igor Mikhailovich, speaking of those climatic events that are happening now, that we are talking about, that it's not a scare tactic at all, it's not a shock therapy. These are the realities of today which are happening. And scientists have also made an interesting conclusion about the fact that so many disasters are happening. But luckily, so far, not that many human lives have been taken. It's as if people are being given some more time.
You mean that there is a disparity in the power of the catastrophe and the human casualties?
Yes.
But this, once again, this happens because there are those who are not just at the far front, but in the very thick of it, in the very fray of these events. However, to be completely honest, there are too few of them. For now, they can do something. But later, several individuals won't be able to cope where there should be dozens. These are also the realities of today, and all this also depends on the society as a whole. The situation is being improved and made easier as much as possible, no matter how fantastical it might sound. But this isn't forever. But this gives at least some chance, at least to someone. This is also true.
It's important that there are as many people as possible who would.
So I would say the most important thing is that every person on the planet hears this and actually starts implementing that second. As you have said, scenario, and not just imagining such an altruistic community, but actually implementing it in this world, then everything would be fine. Because life is indeed beautiful, guys. And when it's in peace, in joy, in love, in creation, when people's souls are really open towards each other, when it's not from the position of consumer-based format of exploiting someone, deception or something else, not from the position of personal selfishness so as to exalt oneself over someone else, but in equality, in brotherhood, in love and respect. That's when it's right. Then the world is beautiful. Then life truly has a meaning. Therefore, my friends, let's love each other and let's strive to make this world better. Let's do everything that depends on us. Really do everything possible so that this world becomes a better place. Thank you, my friends. Thank you.